If you've been laid off from a tech job and you're sick of taxes and now you're eyeing Dubai, thinking tax-free salaries and sunshine, how bad can it possibly be? Hold up. I've spent several months interviewing in the UAE and Saudi Arabia, and I got to learn a lot about this market. So let's look at what it's really like to live and work there and whether it's worth considering it in 2025. If you're considering a move to the Middle East for work, there are a few things most people don't realize about the job market there. Stick around till the end of the video. This could save you months of wasted effort. The United Arab Emirates, and Dubai in particular, has invested heavily in tech branding and marketing, and they've earned their right to brag. You've probably seen those famous photos of Dubai in the 70s versus today. Now, if building skyscrapers in the middle of a desert does not impress you as much, get this. They have learned to change the climate of their country. While American and Canadian healthcare systems still use fax, the UAE changes the climate above their heads. Let's start with the tech ecosystem. It is dominated by service tech. It is huge on fintech and crypto and all kinds of software that optimize services. Food delivery, transportation, payments. It's common for people who work in tech and live in Dubai to not cook, to not clean, to not park their cars, because it's very common to delegate chores to service workers. And tech is often built around those needs. But this is not North America. It is not top tech countries of Europe. It is not a product-led culture at all. It is heavily service-led, consultant-heavy scene. Think digital transformation projects for government agencies or big corps, and not shipping globally disruptive consumer tech. They're trying to get there, which is one of the reasons they highly favor expats from the US, Canada, and Europe. Dubai is very polar in that regard, in my humble opinion, because there are things that are so advanced, your jaw drops. And it's not just tech. Like when I was considering moving there, I saw this ski machine in a mall. And let me tell you, I live in Canada and I probably ski less than people in Dubai. Clinics, health centers, open 24/7, service of any kind delivered to you within minutes, glamorous cars, apartments, weddings, all those beautiful things, but that doesn't belittle the fact that B2B scene is very much behind. On the positive side, the country has world-class infrastructure, uninterrupted connectivity, and pro-business environment that attracts both global tech giants and ambitious founders. On the negative side, many companies, especially traditional B2B, still struggle with legacy systems, outdated business models, or complete absence of digitalization. I have personally interviewed at companies that would flat out tell me that what they were building is not innovative at all, and the kind of technology that they want has already been the standard in the West for years, but it hasn't been adapted to the Middle Eastern market, which is why they're building it. So if you interview at B2B firms, just know that it is not uncommon to be asked to spend the first several years dragging them to the baseline standards. And yes, this pattern exists in many parts of the world, but in the Middle East specifically, it is often explained by the regional nuances of the market. This is what I mean when I say that it feels polar. For example, here's a piece of very recent news. The United Arab Emirates and the United States have signed an agreement for the Gulf country to build the largest artificial intelligence campus outside of the United States. At the same time, B2B is full of eye-opening examples of deeply entrenched legacy systems. Outdated point of sale, inventory, and supply chain tools are still common, which leads to limited data visibility, slower fulfillment, and friction when integrating with modern e-commerce platforms. There is lots of noise about VC growth, and the region's total VC funding in 2024 was under $4 billion. For context, that's what New York pulls in a single quarter. Quality of talent. Now, this part is tricky. The engineering and product talent pool is extremely global. You will work with folks from Eastern Europe, the European Union, Canada, and some parts of Asia. But senior leadership talent with global experience is scarce. It exists, but it's not common. I've had tons of interviews in Dubai, and I did heavy research on every single person who was interviewing me. And no, it is almost impossible to find people with resumes that you would typically see in New York, London, Toronto, or Seattle. And it makes sense, because if you're high up in your career, which means we're probably talking 40 years of age and older, and you work in a tier 1 market, the salary that you're making most likely beats the salary that you will be offered in Dubai. Plus, your career already heavily depends on the network around you. If you're surprised about the salaries, I recommend that you check out this video that I made about the UAE compensation. Spoiler, it's less than you think. So back to the leadership talent that I was talking about. People who reach senior leadership levels in tier 1 markets tend to stay in tier 1 markets. and not move to the UAE. The UAE is a common choice for people who worked in tier 1 economies, got up to mid-level, got tired of taxes, and started looking for alternatives. So they become senior in the UAE ecosystem. So don't expect challenging peer feedback loops or strong product market fit intuition unless you bring those skills yourself. If you're a PM or a designer, expect to spend a lot of time educating upward. Stakeholders often come from non-tech backgrounds, especially in conglomerates and government orgs. The vibe. The UAE sells a dream: tax-free income, luxury lifestyle, and safety. And for some it works, but I read an observation by a founder that I'm following on LinkedIn. He is an active digital nomad and he spent several years working in the UAE. And one interesting observation that caught my attention was that he noticed that Dubai is rarely liked by people who grew up in highly aesthetic countries. So he said that you will not find a lot of people who are Paris born or Vienna born or Budapest born staying there for a long time and saying, yes, Dubai is my jam. As lavish and as glamorous as it can be, it can also be very fake, very plastic, and very artificial. And I think one's perception of the UAE and Dubai specifically really depends on the place that you're coming from. Now, the universal qualities that are liked by most people is that it's very clean, it's warm, and logistics are world-class. Security, unless you work in shady industries, is top-notch. But behind the influencer reels, here is what doesn't get said very often. It's a fast-moving society. People cycle in and out every few years. You will rarely feel settled unless you're in a tight-knit expat group. The pace is fast but not innovative. It's hustle culture without the upside equity. And everything from visas to jobs is employer-tied. You don't own your life there. One more thing on the common perk of the UAE, which is taxation. Everybody knows that the UAE, as well as Saudi Arabia, for example, does not impose personal income tax on individuals. However, Americans working in the UAE face different tax and compliance obligations compared to Europeans or Canadians. The US citizens are required by their government to file annual federal tax returns and report their worldwide income to the US, regardless of where they live. Yeah, the double taxation is the price of the American citizenship. Now, Americans can use provisions like the foreign earned income exclusion and foreign tax credit to reduce or eliminate double taxation, but they still face ongoing, often complex, US tax filing requirements, and they face them for life unless they renounce the citizenship. In contrast, Europeans and Canadians generally do not have to file or pay taxes to their home countries once they become non-residents, meaning they lose their tax residency in their home country and sever significant residential ties, allowing them to fully benefit from the UAE's tax-free environment. So while all Western expats can enjoy the UAE's lack of personal income tax, American citizens face the unique burden of continuous tax reporting and potential liability to their home country. As for the Europeans and Canadians, the loss of tax residency means different things in different countries. So do your due diligence to understand all the nuances of the taxation in your particular country. But in Canada, for example, those who choose to live and work abroad must ensure that they have broken residential ties with Canada. Otherwise, they may remain subject to Canadian tax on their global income even while living in the UAE. Canadians also lose government health insurance plan when we sever our tax residency because our provincial health coverage is tied to our residency status, and most provinces require individuals to be physically present for a certain number of months each year in the country to maintain that coverage. So if your country's healthcare services are important to you and you're exploring the move to the Middle East, just keep that in mind. Cost of living. No tax advantage is real, but Dubai is not cheap. Rent has skyrocketed post-COVID, with expat-heavy areas like Marina and downtown seeing up to 40% increase in the past 2 years. School fees are outrageous if you have kids, $15,000 to $30,000 per child annually. Car culture is real, public transportation is very limited, and Dubai is not a very walkable city, which is painful for many Europeans. When is Dubai a good idea? Dubai and the UAE in general makes sense if you can close your eyes on the luxury lifestyle and save 50% of your budget. Another thing that is rarely mentioned is that you should always negotiate housing allowances as a separate line item in your contract. Many companies in the UAE will lowball your package unless you ask. Lastly, it is a lot less common to get your housing reimbursed these days. This used to be a thing that the UAE offered back in mid 2010s to attract more talent, but it is a lot less common to have that kind of perk now. So if you heard stories from people who moved there 10 years ago, I would say do not count on your accommodation being reimbursed. It is a good idea if you're a mid to senior professional from Canada, the EU, or the US looking to stack cash tax-free and then invest in a property, for example, and you want to do it faster than you'd be able to do it in your home country. But once again, this only works if you're able to close your eyes on the luxury lifestyle that Dubai pushes you to have. It's harder than most people think. It is a good choice if you believe in getting in early into emerging markets. And lastly, if you're fine with playing a leadership or a mentorship role, not necessarily building next-gen tech. It is a much better choice for people who want to end up in entrepreneurship, not employment. Because the real perks of the UAE come into play when you are an entrepreneur, not an employee. Now, when is it not a good idea? It is not a good idea if you want to build deep tech or grow your product intuition in a fast-moving, user-centric environment. You're optimizing for a long-term equity, startup culture, or meaningful career mentorship. It may not be the best choice for people who consider themselves socially progressive and very democratic, if you know what I mean. Conclusion. So all in all, Dubai is not the next Silicon Valley, but it is a global sandbox where experienced professionals can make more money than back in their home countries, live comfortably, and try things that might not fly in more regulated systems. Just note what you're trading and what you're not getting. Moving on to Saudi Arabia, tech scene and culture. Saudi Arabia is not quietly trying to build a tech ecosystem. It's throwing hundreds of billions of dollars at it. Their strategy is to buy talent, fund labs, and attract founders. Saudi Arabia is making massive investments in technology, with figures around $100 billion being cited for AI and tech initiatives, including projects like NEOM and various AI hubs. These investments are part of the Vision 2030 strategy to diversify the economy away from oil dependence and build a global tech hub. Most tech jobs are tied to infrastructure, consulting, or government mandates, not product-led companies. NEOM is still more of a construction zone than a functioning tech city. The ecosystem does not yet have enough technical founders, PMs, or designers to be self-sustaining. Here are some examples of notable Saudi tech unicorns and companies. STC Pay, digital wallet and payment platform. Some time ago, Western Union acquired a 15% stake, and it is valued above $1 billion. Jahez, I hope I'm not butchering the name, a food delivery company, IPO at $2.4 billion market cap, one of the first Saudi tech IPOs. Tabi and Tamara, both notable fintech firms in Saudi Arabia, and Noon, a major e-commerce platform in the Middle East, Saudi founded. You'll see some American execs flown in to run projects, but the actual builder class is very thin. Quality of talent. The technical talent pool is mostly local. The Western talent is not as common due to how conservative the country is. But those who get tired of taxation and realize that the UAE is not going to cut it are actively exploring Saudi Arabia. It is not nearly as saturated as the UAE. However, there is a trend among Western tech workers, especially those seeking lower taxation or opportunities in the emerging markets. And the trend is that a lot of tech workers are actively exploring Saudi Arabia roles as the UAE becomes more saturated and less attractive for certain profiles. Saudi nationals in tech exist, but they are a minority in execution-focused roles, often fast-tracked into management due to localization policies, which on one hand, I completely understand. On the other hand, if you're going there as an outsider, you're going to have a very hard time climbing the corporate ladder. Product managers and designers from global top-tier environments are extremely rare. You won't find a lot of people who have scaled things, run experiments, or built user-centric platforms that really succeeded. While your title might sound senior, the actual leverage will likely be low. The org chart often defers to local ownership, even when experience skews the other way. The vibe. Saudi Arabia is very different from the UAE. It is much more conservative, more hierarchical, and more build the future by 2030, whether it's ready or not. But on the upside, you will have access to insane budgets and ambitions you have never seen anywhere else. Things that Saudi Arabia claims to want to build is unlike anything else anywhere in the world. Projects move fast because they are top down, but social freedoms are limited. It is not very walkable. It is not very diverse, and it's not a tech community in the real sense of the word. You will be isolated if you're not a part of a corporate expat compound. Unlike the UAE, where you can function just fine in English, in Saudi, you will be working with locals much more directly. If you don't speak any Arabic and not planning on learning it, you'll hit friction very fast. It's not just nice to have, it's table stakes. Many job postings are written in Arabic or list Arabic as a requirement. There are some exceptions. For example, highly specialized or senior expats. Those in highly technical, niche, or senior roles may be able to function without Arabic, but these positions are usually the exception rather than the rule. Remote roles or those in companies with an international focus may be more flexible, but even here, Arabic is a strong asset. Few words on the Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 strategy. Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 is a sweeping national strategy launched in 2016 by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to transform the kingdom's economy, society, and global standing. The core aim is to reduce Saudi Arabia's historic dependence on oil by diversifying into sectors such as technology, tourism, entertainment, health, and renewable energy. Now, why is this a big deal? And how come such a conservative place like Saudi Arabia is becoming a new hot trend among tech expats? Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 is a big deal for tech workers because the kingdom announced its plans to transform into one of the world's most dynamic tech markets, opening up unprecedented opportunities and reshaping the regional job landscape. The government aims to grow the tech sector's share of the GDP from 1 to 5% by 2030, invest in billions in digital infrastructure, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and smart cities like Neom and Riyadh's digital corridor. They're doing everything to create a tech talent pipeline, while new policies are also supporting partnership with global tech giants and a focus on STEM education, even for women. But to keep things fair and realistic, as always, I'd like to point out, take these facts with a grain of salt, do your research, and visit the country at least once before moving there. The operative word here is Vision 2030, not Reality 2030. All these plans sound fine and dandy, but again, Saudi is an emerging market, not an established one. Things may or may not unfold as expected, or they may happen in a completely different way. If you plan on exploring Saudi Arabia, just keep in mind and be comfortable with the fact that you're betting on an emerging market. That's all I'm saying. Cost of living. Several cities in Saudi Arabia are emerging as tech hubs, each playing a distinct role in the kingdom's digital transformation. Riyadh, the capital, is recognized as the highest-ranked startup ecosystem in the country and among the top 100 globally, fueled by heavy investment, venture capital activity, and a thriving fintech and e-commerce scene. The city hosts flagship events like the LEAP conference, NEOM, the ambitious smart city project designed as a futuristic smart city with integrated AI, robotics, and renewable energy. Jeddah, another key city, is fostering a growing digital ecosystem supported by government initiatives and startup programs. Together, these cities are central to Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030, positioning the kingdom as the regional leader in technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. There is no income tax, and Saudi is more affordable than the UAE, and there are a few reasons for that. Saudi population is much higher than the Emiratis, and they do not depend on expats as much as the UAE does. They've got plenty of locals, but if you receive a senior level package, they usually come fully loaded. Housing paid, driver transport covered, flights home, frequent bonuses. It's the kind of package that the UAE used to offer 10 or 15 years back. Many people who know a lot about the UAE and who work there say that Saudi reminds them of the UAE 10 to 15 years ago. Now, a hot tip: never accept an offer without verifying the benefits in writing. Many recruiters oversell, especially for expats. So when is Saudi Arabia a good idea? It is a good idea if you're trying to stack tax-free cash for 2 to 3 years, and can tolerate friction. If you're a builder who doesn't mind chaos and thrives in top-down execution. If you're in infrastructure, data, cloud, or consulting, not consumer tech. When is Saudi Arabia not a good idea? If you care about product autonomy, user obsession, or startup culture. If you're looking to grow within a strong peer community of builders. If you value progressive social norms or work-life balance. Conclusion. So all in all, Saudi Arabia isn't trying to be the next Dubai. Also, they're not trying to be the next Silicon Valley. So don't go there thinking you'll build the next big thing. You will be building someone else's vision and cashing their checks. So if Dubai is the sandbox where you get speed and glamour, Saudi is the blank slate with money and mandates. Neither is a startup ecosystem, but both let you play roles you might not land back home. One last thing. If there is one scenario where I truly believe that career consultants are worth every dollar, it's when you're planning a move to the Middle East, especially if you're coming from a country with a very different culture and tech scene. In the UAE and Saudi Arabia, there are multiple companies that either hire exclusively through networks or through recommendations from career consultants, period. They do not consider outsiders. And there's no way to tell just by looking at job postings whether a company hires through networks or not. They all look the same. But when you talk to someone on the inside, someone who understands the nuances and has a network among recruiters, HR, and hiring managers, they can tell you exactly which postings are worth your time and which ones aren't. They can also advocate for you and help with referrals. When I worked with a consultant, I'd send them a list of companies I was applying to, and they'd send it back with insights on which ones actually hire through job postings and which ones don't. Also, do not assume that a company's reputation globally reflects the nature of the roles locally. Take Amazon in the UAE as an example. You might think, okay, great, FANG, but if you dig into the openings, you will see that most roles are in sales, not R&D or product development. If you decide to go the cheaper route and skip hiring a consultant, you will still end up paying a price, except in this case, it's your time. So I personally highly recommend hiring a local recruitment or career consultant. And that's a wrap for the UAE and Saudi Arabia. Let me know what you guys think. Next up, the United Kingdom, France, and Germany. As always, I hope this was helpful. Till next time.